The France 24 debate. We're wondering if there's a Russian spring underway, and we're talking about it from Moscow, Russian artist Misha Most, who was telling us before the break that he is not somebody who's usually interested in politics, but has been going down to the protests that we've been seeing in Moscow and elsewhere. He contributes to the France 24 Observer's website. Also with us, Natalia Narochnitskaya, former parliamentarian and head of the Institute of Democracy and Cooperation. Thank you for being with us. Galia Ackerman of the Paris review Politique Internationale. France 24 International Affairs editor Douglas Herbert, and France 24 producer Vladimir Smeknov. Welcome back to all of you. Just to read you a couple of comments we've had on our social networking sites. Alexander from Paris on Facebook says, I think the Russians are inspired by the Arab awakening in the Middle East. They've had enough of Putin, who is acting like a dictator. While for his part, Larry from Massachusetts says, it's interesting what's going on, but it's still too early to tell. Now, there was a whiff that perhaps things weren't going quite according... things weren't quite going according to script. Not too long ago, it was about 3 weeks ago, November 20th, when Vladimir Putin attended a boxing match. And if you listen... you can hear the sound of booing. Douglas, were they booing because they wanted the next bout to start? What's the story
version you want to... What the Kremlin said afterwards was that they were not booing Vladimir Putin, but rather the defeated American opponent. It was a martial arts match. He was there to congratulate the Russian victor, the winner, and there was an American who had been defeated, so the Kremlin said they weren't booing him. It was the American that was the target of their derision and their jeers. But it was very clear when this went viral and you watched the video, because it was very much, there were actually people, one of them said, get out of here, Putin. You could actually hear a voice in the crowd. It was clearly directed, and there were 20,000 spectators. This was at a Moscow stadium, and I'll just add to this. This was directed at Putin, but there were also instances in other places, at a hockey match, sports arenas, where United Russia, at the mention of United Russia, if officials mentioned the name, there was booing as well. It seemed to be a pattern of heckling and jeering at the mention of official powers, whether it's the party or Putin, in the run-up to this vote. And I'll just qualify that. Of course, it's isolated cases, but we had never seen this before. This was unthinkable once, just a few months ago.
Natalia?
Well, the fact that you are seeing it now reflects the growing democracy in Russia and the openness of society. So the authorities are not afraid to for the world to see that there are no unique...
I'm sorry, they cannot control it anymore. This is the point. The point that
there are always... let me just say a few words, etc. I would not agree with personalizing mass or individual isolated cases of protest by the name of Putin, because still the polls show that Putin's popularity is much higher than United Russia's popularity. The local authorities, the functionaries, have become during last 5-6 years the most despised and hated category of citizens.
That's a fair point. Let's bring it.
Let me just finish. It's those young people, especially in St. Petersburg, a liberal city, they're also inspired by what they saw on TV. I mean, all these Arab revolutions, because it's for young people, it's very encouraging to go out, etc. They probably have shown up for the first time in their life for elections, and they voted for oppositional parties. For Yabloko, for instance, in St. Petersburg, there was a big vote, and for Spravedliv Fair Russia, which is popular in St. Petersburg, not only, well, for many reasons. Oksana Dmitrieva, who led the ballot, is one of the best deputies.
Right, let me just...
But it's very difficult for them to realize that even if all of them voted for this opposition party in St. Petersburg, in such an enormous country, if the rest, for instance, from Ural to Far East does not, it brings down to 2%, etc. It's very difficult for young people to understand.
The phenomenon, I think, a little bit.
No, I'm not minimizing.
Let's pick up on this point with Misha Most. Let's pick up on this point with Misha Most, who's in Moscow. Misha, let me ask you, do the people who are out there protesting? What is their demand? Is it just simply against voter fraud? What are the chants you heard? What are the slogans you heard?
Of course, there were slogans said about the president personally, that he is a thief and that he should leave. But also, most of the slogans were about, and also there were some slogans about the police, that it should be with the people and so on. And of course, slogans about the fraud elections. And but you know, people are, as it's not some specific thing that people now it's just started, right, and it's only forming. So if some of the people who came out, they came out about the elections, then it started forming about the leading party. So maybe it'll all switch to that all these meetings will be just against Putin, you know. So now there are different slogans sounding. Some of them are sounding that you have been fooled on the elections, and but they're written in Russian and with some bad words. But so everybody understands what they mean. But I wanted to say something about the St. Petersburg and Moscow. You were saying, Natalia was saying about Ural, but excuse me, Moscow has 15 million. This is 10% of the whole Russia. St. Petersburg also has a big, like 7 million or something people. If these two cities vote something against the big party, this is a big amount of people voting against it. You cannot just skip it and not notice it, you know?
Misha, is it correct that some of the demands now, some of the protesters are asking to annul the elections? We've just heard today Mikhail Gorbachev, the former Russian president, asking for annulment of the elections. Nemtsov, Boris Nemtsov,
yes,
who is the head of the Solidarność movement, is asking for annulment. What is your opinion? Is that what people are asking on the streets too?
Well, actually, no. The people on the streets were not asking about it. I mean, let's take it true. People on the street, they're not. They're taking it realistically. We cannot take Putin down just with a couple of demonstrations. Everybody understands it. It's more to show that we are aware of getting fooled. You know, that we know that you fooled us. This is what people came out to tell the first time. Maybe it'll switch to, as you said, to annulate the elections, but everybody understands also that it's probably impossible, right? And this also is a funny thing. These other parties, like the Communist Party and the other parties, they really said that we are pretty satisfied with the elections, even though that many percentage of voices were stolen from them and given to the United Russia. People also see this, you know, and people understand that these top politician parties, they're all together, and you know, you can trust them. There was one party you were telling about, Yabloko.
Let's pick up on that point. You say that the communists accept it. We can hear from the leader of the communists, which is the biggest opposition party coming out of this poll, not the liberals. Let's hear from their leader now.
Authorities' behavior is absolutely disgusting. They will pay for that. People will not forgive the fact they've been stepped on. They will never forgive, I assure you. And if Vladimir Putin runs for the presidential elections having this in the background, well, he and his party will drown in this shit by themselves.
Right. Pardon the explicative. Galia Ackerman, where do the communists stand? What are the communists about?
Well, communists become slowly an opposition party. They were not always an opposition party. I mean, they were under Yeltsin very clearly. Then somehow they accepted Putin. And now I think there is this, feeling of just being stolen, a feeling of frustration. When I say stolen, it's because really rich people become richer, and there are so many abandoned children and so many poor people that somehow there is a real claim for social justice. It's a very serious thing. It's what Mikhail Khodorkovsky was claiming years ago already from prison, that there will be a turn to the left. And maybe Zyuganov will become again a real leader of the opposition, even though probably there is a very bad reputation.
I heard Zyuganov commenting the results of the vote, and he said they were satisfied. By the way, I've just talked with my director de recherche, director of studies.
Your field research director.
Yes, he was observer, foreign observer, and he was at the city of Penza. And, well, he mentioned, because he used to be from the OEC observer long before we met and became friends. And he was completely disappointed in the whole system of foreign observation, because he said foreign observers do not see much.
Well,
they do not see the counting of watch. So on this, on those consistencies, he was present. He said there were no observers of Yabloko, etc., but there were observers of communists everywhere, etc., of fair Russia too, and they were not protesting. Well, he saw what he saw because he can't be at all existence.
Absolutely. The people were selecting.
Their position now, the social justice that you absolutely justifully said, it's a general demand of the whole European civilization, because the liberal finances-oriented economy reached its etc. And especially in Russia, which is not a very rich country, etc. But people criticize Putin also, and opposition that he didn't correct enough.
I think
the system founded by the liberals and
but I think
he didn't
they led Russians to a point of extreme cynicism about the way power works in Russia. And I think the tipping point, if you could trace it to something in the run-up to this election, was that announcement back in late September when Vladimir Putin and Dmitry Medvedev finally said that they were essentially going to swap jobs.
Yes.
And yes, people had been expecting this. Everyone was expecting, people joked about it, Putin will be in power forever. But this was the height of cynicism in the sense that it showed that they really did believe that they could sit in a back room, make a deal, and that would actually be okay. I think Putin thought he was reassuring Russians after a week sort of Medvedev, they would feel good having Putin back in control.
Hang on a second, Douglas, because we know that Putin's tenure since 1999, we can call up the graph if you like, has mostly coincided with a huge rise in growth. Russia, on the whole, is faring a lot better than it was before Vladimir Putin came to power.
Putin's prosperity, a Faustian deal, you could say, and you can't deny it, obviously. And he's benefited from also high oil prices, and that graph does show. I think it's gone up right now. The GDP in Russia's gone up to just under $2 trillion or something.
By the way, the price of oil is not about to go down, is it?
No, not at all. But Putin has been very lucky until the recent financial woes. Has been very lucky that oil, the economy has been able to ride very high on oil. It's not a diversified economy. It depends on its energy resources much more than almost any other country. You have to go to Saudi Arabia to get to a greater extreme. And if that economy were to reach a tipping point and head south quickly, I think that would undermine a great foundation of Putin. And a lot of the reason he was able to project this image of the great good Samaritan, the benefactor, the strong person who's going to help all Russians to realize their dreams and nurture this middle class, which, yes, has grown undeniably.
Just because I just want to move on and just for 1 second on this point and rebound off of it. What is the next move for Vladimir Putin? He says, and he made the statement I think it was yesterday, saying he would clean house once he was returned to office as president. Let's take a listen.
In the next stage, following the parliamentary elections, there will be the formation of government. And of course, as we said repeatedly, there will be a serious and significant renewal of personnel in that government.
So what is Vladimir Putin's next move, Gali Ackerman? Is he going to crack down? Is he going to reform from within? What lessons is he going to draw from what's going on?
We don't know. I think he will try to crash all these opposition meetings and demonstrations. Whether he will succeed or not, I don't know, and nobody knows, because if there is force used too much, if there are people wounded or killed, that of course will very strongly undermine his future election.
Misha Most, what's your prediction on that?
Yes, just also one more thing I wanted to say about these parties. You showed Zyuganov saying something, right? But the thing is that all the other parties, they could write papers to the court, and they would annulate these elections, but nobody did it. So on the future of these movements, it's true that if somebody gets killed or something happens, because now there is army in the city. Yeah. There are army forces apart from the special police forces, and also there is a special squadron of police forces from Chechnya. These are some rough guys, about 600 people who came to Moscow and who would not hesitate to do anything like killing or, I don't know, shooting, whether it be rubber bullets or real bullets.
So you're expecting a crackdown? Just very briefly, because we're almost out of we're almost out of time. I want to give
Yes.
I just want to give Natalia Narochnaya one last chance here. Well, is there going to be a crackdown? What is the next move?
Our debate, you are professionally turning it into Putin or not Putin, whether he's good or not. We are talking about situation in Russia, and Putin is certainly one of the most strong-willed and trusted person, despite all this rights.
So what will he do? How will he react?
I don't think, and I hope, that he won't crack down, but he probably will choose something else. And what he promised to change the team, that exactly what people wanted some years ago and were disappointed at all, because so many good words were said, which were received very well by the public, but no personnel change, etc.
This is cynical. I mean, he's been in power for many years, and he's saying now that he's going to change the team, whereas everybody knows that he has been managing the country for those last years.
And unfortunately,
we're out of time. We're going to have
America said it's too early to judge.
We're going to have to unfortunately leave it there. Natalia Narochnaya, I want to thank you. I want to thank Douglas Herbert, Galia Ackerman. I want to thank Vladimir Smeknov, and I want to thank Misha Most for joining us from Moscow, and you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay with us. Coming up next, it's time for business. Marcus Carlson will have how the markets are reacting to the start of what looks like a tiff within the European Union over a plan to save the euro.